Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is my pile of possibilities for quarter two of Historathon 2024. So, Historathon is a year-long reading event where we read, discuss, and celebrate nonfiction history. If you've been following along for more than a year now, this is our second year running, you've heard me say that, or at least a variation of that quite a few times now. But essentially, we look at history, and we have divided the year up into four quarters. We are finishing, as I record this right now, we are basically wrapping up quarter one, which looked at the years prehistory up to the year 500 CE, and we are going to be entering the second quarter. One of the quarters maybe that I'm most excited about, where we look at the years 500 to 1500. Now, you're free to, if you want to participate, read history dealing with really any subject, any part of the world that falls into those years. One of my favorite topics during that time is Vikings or Norse and also Anglo-Saxon. I love the culture and reading about the religion and the society. I find it very, very fascinating. And my choices in reading will reflect that. But I've got some other things I'm trying to branch out and read as well. So what I'm going to be doing is showing my, again, pile of possibilities. The first one's going to be showing, well, pretty much all the ones I'm showing to the camera here directly, I do think I will get to. At least that's my hope. I am planning to get to all of these. I do have additional books that I'm not really showing that I could maybe get to one or two of them depending on how these next couple of months go. You can see some of them actually right here on the shelf beside me. But again, I'm not going to show those because those are really, they're not the priority. So first I'll show you the books that I'm hoping to get to in April. Now, unfortunately, it seems like, at least as I'm recording this, it doesn't appear that one of my favorite reading events of the year that's been going on for quite a few years, but it looks like it's not running this year. And that is Sagalong, where the hosts of it would essentially choose one or two Icelandic sagas to read. And that kind of was my month to read the sagas, but also to dive into Norse history. And again, Anglo-Saxon, I kind of fall within that as well. So Sagalong isn't going on, so I'm kind of doing a little bit of a variation, and I am still using that month to focus on the Norse. So one of the things that I know I'm definitely reading, because I'm going to be doing this as a buddy read with Stephanie Cohen, who is a subscriber, and also Debs, one of my co-hosts from Rainer Reads. She's also going to be joining it, I know. But I'm looking forward to this one. So this is Valkyrie, The Women of the Viking World, by Johanna Katrin Fredriksdottir. I don't know if I'm saying that right, and I apologize if I butchered it. But essentially, this is about, women. It says women in the Viking world, and this kind of photo cover usually makes me suspicious of what I might find, but I've actually heard really good things about this. I've heard, academics in Norse studies actually discuss this with some praise, seeing that it seems to be a really good study. And so that's why I want to look at this. One of the things I do want to do in Historathon this year, starting with quarter three, is look a little bit more at women's history. So there'll be another selection here that will reflect that. But yeah, looking forward to this one and seeing what I get out of this. Another one I plan to hopefully get to in April, although I may push it for possibly May. May is also it didn't happen last year. It might happen this year. But one of my other favorite booktube events was maybe Midrash, which is basically looking at books dealing with religion more seriously. So if I don't get this in April, I might use this as a maybe Midrash pick. But essentially we have the Poetic Edda, Stories of the Norse Gods and Heroes, translated by Jackson Crawford. Here he is on the back. He is prolific on YouTube, so he's very easy to look up things if you want to. And yeah, we have his translation of the Poetic Eddas, one of our main sources for Norse. I mean, you can call it mythology, but for them it would have been more like religion. So something I'm certainly very interested in. Something I've been planning to read for a long time, so this quarter 3, I want to get to it. Also Norse related, something a little bit different. This is Norse America, The Story of a Founding Myth by Gordon Campbell. This is from Oxford University Press. This was actually kindly sent to me a few years back now by Steve Donahue. He kind of sent me a care package filled with Viking books. And finally getting to it. One of the reasons I created Historathon in the first place was to organize my reading and finally get through history books that have been sitting on my shelf for so long. So this is one of them. And essentially this is, from what I understand, a book of 2 halves. The first half is about the Norse discovery of America, or at least what we know about it. Things like Leif Erikson, Vinland, that sort of thing. And the second half is about how that legacy has been used or appropriated in American history. I think often around, unfortunately, around sometimes white supremacist lines or anti-Catholic lines, reflecting sort of an anti-Columbus stance. So it's really about how the legacy has been used by Americans, I think, in the 19th and 20th century. So a little bit, of quarter 2, and also a little bit of a quarter 4, which looks at the years 1820 to present. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what that is, because I do have an interest, the Poetic Eddas kind of reflect that, in Norse religion. And I do have something of interest in modern day heathenry. I am not religious, but I do have like some sort of pagan sympathies, you can say. One of the books I plan on reading for maybe Midrash is about modern day heathenry and how it's practiced. And I know that there are branches of modern day heathenry that do have things like white supremacist, I wouldn't even say leanings, very explicit white supremacy. So I'm thinking that this book will also give me some background into that, that phenomenon. So multiple reasons for diving into this one. And related to the same time period, this is one I wanted to get to last year, but I didn't get to, so I really want to get to it this year. I'm going to prioritize this one for April. This one and Valkyrie are the 2 that I definitely plan to get to for next month. And this is The Year 1000, When Explorers Connected the World and Globalization Began by Valerie Hansen. Now, it's kind of, I'm not even going to read the back, because the back makes this sound, I think, really bad. But then I've read really good reviews of it. So I'm going to try and go with an open mind. But it does seem to be like, trade, globalization, the extent to which people were, extending trade around this time. So I'm going to not overthink it, again, because the back just doesn't sound good to me, but I've heard so many good things. I'm just going to kind of dive right in next month at some point and finish this up. So from there, I am looking to look at the later Middle Ages. So I love the Dark Ages. Like I said, I like Anglo-Saxons. I like, the Norse, that whole world. I do find my later Middle Ages to be a little more rusty. So I've got some various things to look at to, just give me more perspective. Here's the first one. Very kind of unique type book. This is When the Dead Rise, Narratives of the Revenant from the Middle Ages to the Present Day by Christian Livermore, I think. This is, I love that cover design, actually. Now, I am somebody who is interested in horror studies. I've been a lifelong horror film fan, and I'm a fan of the genre, and I have been reading more horror, although it's not something I predominantly read as much as I watch, but I do respect and I'm fascinated by the history of horror. So this kind of relates to that, right? How did people see the Revenant, the dead returning, sometimes for nefarious reasons, in the Middle Ages, and how it reflects? Now it says Middle Ages to the present day. Flipping through this, it seems like most of it deals with the Middle Ages. So yeah, looking forward to that, and especially it looks like it's going to focus a lot on sort of like the Christian. I'm guessing there's some kind of eschatological reason behind a lot of this stuff. This is a short one. Another one that I'm probably going to get through. Like, I'm thinking maybe I'll get through this one in May, and this one and the next one possibly as well. So this one I just recently got from Princeton University from one of their big 75% off sales. This is The Owl and the Nightingale, a New Verse translation by Simon Artemage, who I understand is a very well respected poet. I think he was poet laureate or something like that. But I haven't actually read anything by Simon Artemage. I recognize the name, but I haven't read anything by him. But it's a translation of a Middle English text or poem, and you can see we've got Middle English on one side, English on the other. So it'll be fun to kind of go back and forth and try and read the Middle English, which after with some practice you can mostly do. But yeah, I don't expect this to be a really long read, but this is not a poem really that I know anything about. I did take a medieval literature class as an undergraduate, and even as a graduate, I did take some things that we were reading some medieval texts. Not often literature, though, more like nonfiction text that dated back to the Middle Ages. But yeah, I just never really came across this one. So I'm really interested to hear, or to read, I guess you say, what this is all about. So this is going to be something I dive into. And also, I think in May, I'm going to try and get to this one. Meg Bogan's The Women Troubadours, an introduction to the women poets of 12th century Provence, and a collection of their poems. So again, this connects to that women's history theme. I found this at, I think, Goodwill a few months ago. So, this is just a secondhand thing that I picked up, but right up my alley. We've got text, we've got images, we've got poems with the old French on one side and English on the other, and we've got some explanatory essays in the beginning. So this seems like it'll be really interesting. This is definitely not an area of the Middle Ages that I know much about. And this is older. I think this was originally published in 1980, I believe. Yeah, first Norton paperback was 1980. So, yeah, something, again, that I plan to get to, I think, in May. Now, for June, well, here's one that I picked up from, this was the Chicago University press sale. Very odd cover. When I showed this off in the book hall, a lot of people were interested in this one. It's definitely one that I want to get to. So we got The Fires of Lust, Sex in the Middle Ages by Catherine Harvey. Kind of entertaining cover. But it looks like it'll be a really fascinating read. My favorite type of history is social history, and you can't get more into people's lives and their social lives than their sex lives. So I haven't read much on this topic. It seems like it'll be really interesting, and I think this will be a fun read for June. And also in June, something that I've had on my shelves for a long time and finally want to get to, and that's Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford. I know a lot of people who have read this already. As you can see, my general interest in this time period tends to focus on Europe. And I know there's an overlap here, but I am making a conscious effort with reading this to branch out beyond Europe for this time period. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing it, but also it's been sitting on my shelf for so long, I finally want to get to it. So those are the books that I plan to read in quarter 2 of Historathon 2024. Like I said, I don't know exactly what these next months will look like. I am reading other things as well. I'm going through the banned book project, reading 10 banned books this year. So I know I'm going to be reading one in April. I'll be reading The Handmaid's Tale in April. I'm definitely going to try and read one in May and June as well. So I will be reading some fiction during that time. I already talked about maybe Midrash. I do have some other things planned for that month to read as far as looking into religion. So I do have some things that are going to be competing with my time here and my attention, but nevertheless, I do really hope to get through that pile. And who knows, if there's time somehow, maybe I'll grab another one of these things off the shelf and check that out. But yeah, if you've read any of these, love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thank you, BookTube.